So I was in the middle of doing some self-educating research because I'm gonna start my business and all that. And in the middle of me doing this, I came up with a huge universal, in a sense, realization. And this is what it is because I was looking up stuff about, herbs and plants and et cetera, et cetera. So this is my realization, and this shit is rooted. Because, like, if you know me, like I said, I'm a deep thinker. I like to break stuff down. So, and like I said, I was just doing my stuff for my business. So, I had to break stuff down in order to break stuff down, which made me break this down, which is why I'm where I'm at right now. Okay, yeah. So, my thing was, I said, so this is the thing when it comes to natural things and herbs and earth and nature, and this is the difference, the different worlds that we need to speak on, in a sense. So this is what I came up with. So you know how we talk about, yes, we do have to go back to fucking slavery. So you know how, like, they talk about, well, not even just slavery, we're going past slavery. Past slavery. I'm going to, like, before slavery and shit even started, like when we was all in our own areas doing our own thing type shit. So when the white people came along and they saw us doing what we were doing, see, okay, and y'all remember how I said a while ago or before, everything has to do with your conscious mind, how you think, and it has to also do with the levels of understanding. So when the white people came and they saw, us black people, not even just black people, us, the people, when I say us, I mean the people who were in that area around that time. Because it's not even just black people. That's such a tight form word that is also expanded. That's why I don't even want to say black people, because when you do that, you put titles on the stuff, and that's when you start to turn people off to it, because you kind of exclude them in a sense. So it's like, nah, this is all a fucking team effort. But yeah, so they saw us in the land and how the land was prospering and how we were doing so great and phenomenal. This is why we were doing so great and phenomenal, because we actually took the time to break things down and understand the land. We took actual time to not only learn through our experiences but others. That's exactly what our people did. And that's why I'm realizing this, because that's the exact same thing I'm doing right now. This is the exact same thing that I've been, quote unquote, preaching about for the longest: the break everything down, do stuff for yourself. Our people took time out of their day. They saw and they figured out, stuff like what plants could do for us, the point of herbs. They took advantage of their surroundings by not manipulating it, but they took time to understand it. And by them understanding it, they were able to use it to benefit them. They didn't manipulate it and take advantage. They understood so they could properly use it. So take that in mind. So we were doing that, which is exactly why our people were thriving and doing so phenomenal. But the white people, and I say the white people because it does kind of matter where we are. It's not the fact that you're white that matters, but at the same time it is, because the fact that you're white shows that that's where your people were during that time, which means you would have to more so understand what they were doing to know why they did it. You know what I mean? Because, like, I'm not white, so that white history, it doesn't connect for me. I'm not going to be able to break that down, because that's not where my people were when stuff like that was going on. You feel what I mean? You have to start, in order to understand everything, you have to start with yourself. Oh, and I go deeper into what I was already saying. What? Just look at the cycle of all this. It's crazy. So yeah, back to what I was saying. So we took advantage in the right way of the land. We took advantage by understanding, appreciating, accepting, and then benefiting off of it. We didn't just try to benefit right off the bat. And that's what it seems white people try to do. And it shows, because look at where we are now with all this unnecessary needed stuff and the stuff that's fucking us up and really killing us off. because they're using all these chemicals and base stuff. And this is how they really trick us. They say it's natural and it has all these herbs and plants. Yes, it does have the herbs and plants, but it also has a lot of stuff that's really bad for our bodies, all them chemicals and stuff that we are not supposed to really put in us. Or it's just that, okay, they proportion it wrong. There's never a such thing as a bad thing. It's just how you use it is what makes it quote unquote bad. It all has to do with qualities and amounts, or quantities and amounts that you use them in. For example, like they'd be like, alcohol isn't bad. Well, of course it's not bad. It only becomes bad when you misuse it, when you don't completely understand it, which is why people turn into things like alcoholics, etc., etc. See, that was to help y'all get a better understanding. But back to the main topic, which is, us actually taking time to break things down to understand it. That's what exactly we did. But white people at the time, they weren't doing that. So it's like, now I understand when people are like, white people are evil and blah, blah, blah. No, it wasn't even necessarily that they were evil. They were just very impatient and ignorant around that time. Our people weren't, which is exactly why we were thriving. Us taking our time to understand stuff and breaking it down and appreciating and accepting, that allowed us to thrive off of it. That allowed us to create whole colonies and all that. That's how we created everything we had. But white people in their area around that time, how they decided to think most likely was they wanted more so like quick results. Like, I want it here and now. Give it to me. That's that. And like not actually, like they were more so surface level thinking when it came to a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? They weren't taking time to break it down. And that's exactly how I feel, how a quote unquote slave trade and all that started. Because, that's why they started stealing our people. They wanted to understand what we were doing. And instead of they wanted us to do for them what we were doing for ourselves. But that's the thing. Like I always be talking about, you're not supposed to look for understanding in others. You're supposed to look for understanding within yourself first, so then you'll be able to know how to understand others' understandings. You know what I mean? So they had to first. No, not even they had to first. That's why they did that. That's why they took us, and that's why stuff is so messed up, and that's why we feel so like, we feel so brainwashed or something doesn't sit right. And that's exactly why black people don't prosper. We're too busy trying to do stuff the quote unquote white way, when that's not necessarily meant for us. That's not our understanding. Because when we break it down more and more, and we understand ourselves more and more, and then you use what you know from yourself into the real world, that's when pieces start to connect. So yeah, it's not even that white people were evil. It's just that they were ignorant. They didn't understand, and they tried to understand, but their way of understanding fucked us up in a sense, and that's exactly why we need to create boundaries, because this is what you got to understand. Our people, I feel like it was more so just like an innocent thing. We were thriving. We were quote unquote woke. And that's how our people were woke. We were woke because we took time to actually understand the land. We took the time. That's what made us woke. We took the time. That's it. We didn't take advantage. We appreciated it to benefit. That's how all that works. Yeah. So it's like, let me get back to the main point. Yeah. So it's not even that white people are evil. It's just that they're very, very ignorant. And yeah, that's really that. And that's a learning from both. And then if you actually look at it, it's a learning from both sides. We need to see it from both sides. So the quote unquote, I'm going to say the quote unquote flaws with how the white people must have been thinking around that time was, if you want it, you just take it. It doesn't matter. Somebody else will do it for you. But how black people were around that time, or our people were around that time, since we were so quote unquote woke, that made us more giving and in a sense gullible, because when you do too much of something, it can always turn into a bad thing. Our people didn't have those boundaries. And we didn't have those boundaries because we had no true reason to create them. Because we were all we knew around that time. You know what I mean? It took that different expanding, that different understanding. That's why I'm understanding this now, you know? Understanding both sides. You got to see both stories, see both perspectives. So yeah, our people, our flaws around that time where we were too giving. We didn't understand them, and we didn't try to understand them, and then by the time we understood them, it was too late when we should have just tried to do it from the start. You know what I mean? So it's like I see both sides, and the ignorant shows, and the cycle continues now. The real cycle that actually continues is what's to call it? That's why it's hate between it's the thing between white and black people. I used to think it was the government. It's the government's fault that white and black people hate each other. No, it's our fault because we never tried to truly understand and see the cycle. Or we were too busy going based off of others instead of, self-thinking and trying to break it down. So yeah, and it took a lot, like, this didn't just take me thinking about history. This took me having to use all of my skills and qualities, from my everyday life to school education to my spirituality to society's common logic to my known self-experience, grown knowledge and logic. Like, it took all of that to come to this one, common ground or conclusion. So yeah, that's the thing. White people aren't really evil, and it's just it's one big misunderstanding. That's literally what it is. It's literally one big misunderstanding. So I feel like how we fix this is everybody needs to kind of go to their area to understand it. I'm not saying we should go to it because we don't belong together. We don't belong together at this very moment. That is what's fucking us up. We're trying too hard to make shit that's not supposed to go together right now go together. You know what I mean? It's like we're trying to mix water with oil, which is very possible. It's just that you have to purify the water and get the oil naturally. You get what I mean? You gotta break it down in order for it to truly work. You gotta see why it's not working in order for it to work. So yeah, I feel like if everybody just actually took fucking time to think for themselves and be alone and do some self-research and education, you would understand everything, which is what I'm starting to do. Like, you know how crazy that is? I came up with this realization just by me doing some self shit. This realization all rooted from me doing research about about just herbs, because for my business and all that. This all started from me breaking down how to make, to start a garden with it, like in my own area, in my own house, in my own home. This all rooted from that. Like, y'all don't understand how powerful the brain is. It's like, and a lot of y'all will truly never see it because y'all are not thinking for yourselves, and you're still not thinking for yourselves. All it really takes is thinking for yourself. Like, this is really blowing me right now because I'm actually thinking about it. Like, I came up with this very logical and deep realization about shit that happened before I was even born. And this is exactly, oh my goodness. Like, I just need to start a book, because how I came up with this realization had to do with me and my spiritual journey. And that was because I was like, hey, spirits are just energies, right? Yeah, right. Okay, so with that being said, that's just, spirits and energies are the same thing. And then I had to take in mind, I was like, hey, what if, spirits aren't real in the way that we think they're real? You know what I mean? Because it's like, how I was saying you have to understand yourself first. And that's we have, in order to understand, that's an everyday thing. That's an everyday experience. That's why I think it is very important to be by yourself and have alone time and think for yourself. Like, in order for all this in order for you to understand thinking process and what I mean, you're going to have to be by yourself and understand yourself so you can think for yourself. When you truly learn how to think for yourself, you will be able to understand what everybody is saying, literally, like literally, because that's all life is. All life is taking what applies. And then when you always take what applies, you'll find truths in different ways. Like, it's a beautiful concept to me, and it's just crazy, and it's that easy. So it's like, yeah. And look, all this was just rooted for one thing. People call this overthinking. And if this is overthinking, oh, I love it. Because what? Look at all these facts, this logic, this quote unquote, this is common sense right here. Thinking for yourself and you prioritizing your knowledge and experience with others and only accepting what needs to be accepted because it makes sense for you. You're supposed to take what's best for you and the rest will fall in place later. Literally. But yeah, that was a nice little mini self-realization. White people aren't evil. And it's not that we're dumb. It's just that we were ignorant. Both sides were very ignorant of each other, which is exactly why we're in the very fucked up situation society that we're in now. All due to not trying to understand. Crazy.